Alright, so starting with the oil change on this car, because it's going to be the simpler job we're going to do today, I want to go over a few preliminary things before you start. So first of all, these S4s take about 9.5 quarts of oil. That's why you see I have two 5-quart jugs of Liqui-Moly 5W40. 5W40 is the weight you need for these cars, and Liqui-Moly is one of the most highly recommended oil brands on the forums. I've never done an oil change on an Audi. This is the first Audi I've ever had experience with, so we're going to go ahead and try it out. I want to get the best of the best because I like to take care of my cars. I would always suggest fully synthetic in any car that you drive, no matter what it is, because it just protects your engine so much better. So we got the 10 quarts of Liqui-Moly, as well as an OEM oil filter, and then a magnetic drain plug from ECS Tuning. I went with the magnetic drain plug because all engines have a little bit of metal to metal contact. You get little metal shavings in the motor oil, and so that magnetic plug will help take care of those. They'll help get them out of the oil and stuck to the plug, so that way those metal shavings aren't circulating through the engine and causing additional wear. And then the nice thing about these cars is they actually made the oil filter change very simple. You just gotta go ahead and pop open the hood, remove this plastic cover piece here. It just pops off, there's no bolts, and then there is your oil filter. It's inside of here, so it is a canister type. You just get a 24mm socket, loosen this part up, and I would suggest placing a towel or something around here so you don't drip oil all over the engine. And then you just take this out, remove the old filter, put the new one in, and screw this back in. So we'll get to all that later. First step, we gotta go ahead and jack up the car and then drain the oil. Alright, now that the car is in the air, you just want to give it a little shake. Make sure that it's securely on the jack stands. Remember to always use jack stands, so that way there's almost no chance of the car falling on top of you. But now that it's up in the air, we can go ahead and get this plastic under tray off, and so that way we can access the oil drain plug from down here, and we can drain the oil. So to remove this plastic shield, you're going to have, well, I have 5 flathead screws, one here, one here. I think I'm missing one, should be around one of these 2 holes here, one back there in the corner, in the middle, and another one in this corner. So you'll probably have 6. I don't think I have 5 right now. I think I have a replacement for that one. So go ahead and get those flathead screws out. Then we can remove this under shield tray, and then we can get to the drain bolt, which is a T55 Torx head. So make sure you have one of those before you start this process. Make sure whenever you go to reinstall the drain plug, whether or not you use a new drain plug or reuse your old one, you always want to put on a new crush washer. And the reason for that is that because these are not made to be reused, they crush, hence the name crush washer, and that's what helps seal against the oil pan itself. So if you go to reuse the old one, there's a good chance that this thing will already be crushed and it won't have that elastic property anymore. It won't expand and fill any gaps between the plug and the oil pan. And so there's a good chance you might get a few leaks. It won't be anything serious in most cases, but you never want oil leaks under your car. So always make sure you get a new washer. These things are really, really cheap. And honestly, you can find them at any hardware store that sells various sizes. So make sure you go ahead and replace these anytime you're doing an oil change. Also, make sure you have some sort of a drain pan or container large enough to fit 9.5 quarts of oil. This one I have did not, and it spilled quite a bit of oil all over the garage floor. So just make sure you have the right size drain pan so you can drain all of the oil properly, and that way it doesn't spill all over the floor and you don't have to spend half an hour cleaning oil off of your garage floor. And one last thing is this set of wires, I'm not entirely sure what it goes to. I believe these may go to the headlight washers, which this car doesn't have them. They would be behind the square here and the square on the side there. But if anybody knows what that goes to, please let me know, because there's no codes or anything on the car for it, but I want to find some way of either plugging that into something or taping it up and zip tying it up under the car better, so that way there's just no chance of it dragging along the ground. Alright, Alright, so here is the new oil filter. This side is the one that connects to the plastic piece here that goes on the top of the engine. It also came with new O-rings and washers, so make sure you use these new ones as well for the same reason that we did with the drain plug. Let's go ahead and get the old filter out. It's just gonna snap off. There we go. And it's always a good idea, you can even take some of the old oil, but you just want to lubricate the O-ring a little bit. That way it doesn't tear when you go to reinstall it, especially when you're tightening it down. Now that that's in place, we can go ahead and pop the new filter on. And there we go. Now they got the new filter on the plastic housing, we're going to go ahead and screw it in. If you notice here, I don't know if the camera can pick that up, but it says 25 Newton meters of torque. That is the torque spec for screwing this housing back in, and that equates to about 18 foot-pounds. So make sure you do it properly so you don't over tighten it, and then you also don't want to get it too loose so that way oil doesn't come out of the housing and spill all over the engine. Alright, now that that's done, we can go ahead and put the plastic trim pieces back on and then go ahead and refill the oil. Alright, so I only put 9 quarts in to start with because most likely there's still a little bit left in the engine. So that should be fine. We'll go ahead and start it up later. Make sure that check on the dipstick, see if the oil level is good. If it is, then great, mission accomplished. If not, then we can always add more later on. But it's better to just go ahead and not overfill the engine, because overfilling an engine with oil is almost as dangerous as not having enough oil in it. So you can always add more, but it's hard to take some out. Now that we have the oil change taken care of, we're going to go ahead and replace the PCV valve on this car. This valve is very important. All cars have them, and what this does is it regulates the flow of crankcase pressure through tubes. You got one on this head here and then one on the other head here behind the intake tube, and it regulates the flow of crankcase pressure through there and then back into the intake. And the reason why you need one of these check valves is because if you had too much air flowing out of the crankcase, it's possible that it could pick up oil vapors with it. And so this valve here helps prevent those oil vapors from getting past and going into the intake and gumming up the intake and the valves and the inside of the combustion chambers. So it's always a good idea to replace one of these after a while. This car has about 115,000 miles on it. I don't know if it's ever been replaced, so we're going to go ahead and take care of this. It is a normal maintenance item, but one that most people forget about. And if your car burns a little bit of oil, it's very possible that this could be the culprit. On this vehicle, it's located on the top right here behind the oil filter housing. So to get to it, we're probably going to have to move this PCV hose, we're going to move this coolant hose, and this vacuum hose right here, and then we should have just enough room to wiggle this out and put the new one back on. So because of the tight access and these really annoying hose clamps that they can't be screwed on or off, I gotta cut this one off. So I'm gonna try to Dremel tool this one off so I can get the PCV valve off. But make sure you always wear safety glasses whenever you're cutting metal, so that way any shavings that fly up, they will not go into your eyes. Finally got the old one off here. As you can see, I had to cut off the hose clamp on this end and on this end. So engineers from Audi, if you're listening to this, please stop using these types of hose clamps. They are terrible to work with. Just use normal ones. Sincerely, every single Audi owner out there. It wasn't terrible trying to do the PCV valve, but it was very frustrating because of those dang hose clamps that Audi put on. But the oil change wasn't bad. Just remember to make sure you have the right size drain pan. Make sure you have lots of paper towels to clean up any spills afterwards, and that you put a new washer, a new gasket on the oil filter housing and the drain plug itself. So I hope that this has helped you guys if you're looking to do an oil change and PCV valve change on your own S4, or really any car for that matter, because some of these principles could still apply. So I want to thank you all so much for watching. Now I gotta get back to work and tackle that AC issue and the snub mount. So I'll see y'all in the next video.